Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy. This one was a surprise, completely out of left field for myself, and I'm sure many of you out there as well. And if you're anything like I am, you might have been a bit nervous for this launch. Another third-person squad-based action RPG coming from the same developer. That's reasonable cause for concern. But does it hold up as being one of the best games of 2021, as I've seen many critics claiming it to be? Well, that's what we're going to try to find out. How is it going, everybody? My name is Damarco, and welcome to my spoiler-free review of Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy. Let's begin with the story, yeah? This isn't an origin tale. You're not going to be seeing the beginning or the formation of the Guardians, or how Peter Quill came to be, or Rocket, or any of the other characters for that matter. Not here. Instead, they already start as a team of wannabe heroes. Anybody who does know the name Guardians doesn't think of it favorably, but they're trying to turn that around. Unfortunately, they have about the teamwork and coordination as a group of former criminals and general scum. Hell, honestly, some of them are still pretty scummy.
This time I insist we hurl the foul beast.
And I insist we push muscles over the side of the cliff.
To what end?
Yours! You are dead! Dead! No!
But that's where the main plot of this game comes forward, is seeing them grow together, learn together to operate as a team, and become a family with one another. In fact, this actually works in the game's favor from a story and narrative perspective, as Peter wouldn't know everything about these characters. Instead, both you and Peter, as the projection of yourself, it allows you to learn about these characters through interacting with them, the banter that they have, the stories that they tell you. And even if your understanding of the Guardians is only limited to what you know about the MCU, while they're different from their movie or big screen counterparts, it at least is a pretty good branching off point, and you'll learn about them throughout the game. It's pretty appropriate narratively. Unfortunately, they stumble upon a world-changing event that puts the entire galaxy at risk, and only one group of people are up to the challenge of stopping it.
What kind of name is Avengers?
Honestly, in this story, the main antagonist of the game kind of fell a bit flat behind what I consider to be the main narrative focus, which is the teamwork and the characters coming together. The main antagonist of the game, the Grand Unifier, was about as interesting as most standard MCU villains, which is to say, they do their job and their presence and their foreboding, but it's not really the most interesting part.
So useful for you to point it out. Thanks!
You're welcome.
There's some really emotional moments here. It's hard to make me do, but at certain points in the game, I genuinely teared up, if I wasn't laughing hysterically along the way. Starlord is incredibly relatable as he tries to unify this team of misfits and is growing into the leader that he needs to be in order to do so, while also battling both internal and external demons that you get to witness play out. It makes for a great story that I won't soon forget. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if in an alternate universe, which is very appropriate for Marvel by the way, this was the movie we got, while the Marvel Guardians film was the game that we got. It's that good.
Go into that fortress with our monster peacefully walking beside us. We'll be laughed right out of the room.
Any bites?
Why are you whispering?
What about the characters? I'm happy to say that here they were done justice as well. It's not so different from what we see in the MCU that you just can't understand it, or it's just weird or uncomfortable like it was for a lot of people in Avengers, but they are different enough where they stand strong on their own, and they're believable in this separate universe that's being created. Certain characters deviate more than others. Gamora in particular was much different than what we saw on the big screen.
But I'm used to people in charge not being afraid to get scut done.
The heck?
But it was done tastefully, and it was in a position where I kind of wish they leaned into it more. Each character will noticeably grow over the course of the game. They can be abrasive, annoying. There were moments in this title I wanted to shout through the screen for them to just shut the fuck up! But all in all, it makes it all the more rewarding. Even these negative, angry moments, these frustrating times, make it more rewarding when you finally do see them work together. It's important to get this right in any game, dialogue and writing, but especially important for a Guardians game, and they nailed it. But the other aspect of that is humor. And I'm happy to say that there were genuine moments I was laughing out loud.
I still do not understand why I must remain on board with the assassin.
Because you're part of Green Team.
You assigned me to the team before you named it, and my skin is not green. It's teal.
Teal.
I've been praising this game to no end, but we do need to take a step back and acknowledge some of the faults that the story does have, specifically the pacing. There were moments where you'd go on significantly less interesting planets for some kind of detour or diversion. You knew when it was happening. I couldn't help but feel if they condensed these sections down that it would have done wonders for other moments in the game, either to develop other characters. I could think of a few in particular that desperately deserved it. There are choices in the game too. I wish they would have leaned more into those. It seems like they kind of dipped a toe in the water to see how this kind of choice and consequence element would work, but they're too afraid to jump into it. And I think if they fully explored it and fleshed that out, it could have done wonders for the experience and for replayability. We're gonna speed a bit through here. Music, sound, and visuals. The music was incredible. You have that classic Guardian soundtrack that works well as you're soaring around and blasting people and sending off explosions and commanding your allies to do certain attacks.
These titles used to be filled with miners instead of freaks.
They should abandon their false god and return to work. Thank you.
The original score isn't something to sleep on either. The 80s soundtrack is great, but it's augmented and improved by the fact that the other music in the game is done so well. Visually, the game's gorgeous. Enough said. You can see for yourself in the footage and certain scenes that it's just great. The sense of scale in particular was phenomenal. As far as visuals go, 10 out of 10. And then there's just a level of attention to detail. There was one moment where there's a baseball game going on screen. There's actual players moving around, running across the bases. That level of detail is insane. They could have just had the TV off. They could have just left it a still screen, but they actually animated. The details here are great, so much so that when there's a lack of them, it really, and I mean really, stands out. One of the worst culprits in particular, there was one scene with a ton of NPCs on it. They're all T-posing. At least animate some of the ones that are close by. Gameplay is where the game starts to become a bit of a mixed bag for me. It'll take you between two elements. You'll go between exploration and combat. The exploration moments will find you checking out some hidden caves or secret passageways in order to find crafting elements. These crafting parts are used to upgrade Quill's abilities through the form of perks. You'll also find skins that anybody who's seen my Deathloop review knows how happy it makes me to say that there's no microtransactions in Guardians of the Galaxy. Thank God. You'll also find some items that are interesting or are personal to certain characters in the Guardians crew that you can take back to the Milano and discuss them with. It gives you a really deep look into the characters to learn more about them and what they've been through. The level design of the planets was interesting mostly. The planets that you go to are cool to look at and cool to explore. They're beautiful in their own way. But as opposed to what we've seen with older games, you know when you walk into a section and you see the conveniently placed cover barrels stacked all around? This time around, it's the exact opposite. Walk into a big open empty space, combat's coming, boy. You better believe it. There are certain flying segments in the game, but I didn't feel as though they really added too much. There was This was the most unpolished section of the game, I would say. I saw the potential for it to be exciting and to be some truly climactic moments, but the controls were janky and it just felt really stiff and rigid. The level system in the game, as I did say, you do have the crafting parts which allow you to craft perks. You'll also be able to level up your individual party members' skills. Unfortunately, again, this is an area where it's just not expanded as much as it can be. I will say that they're interesting, and these abilities that you unlock for your characters through a level up system unlock completely new skills, but once you unlock them, that's it. There's no upgrades, there's no branching paths, no nothing that makes them more unique or customizes them or develops them any further than just simply unlocking them. And there's only 4 for each character. But what about the combat itself? Well, I think the best way to describe the combat is it feels like the first game in a series. You know, if you go back and play Arkham Asylum, the combat, the free flow system isn't nearly as polished as what you get in Arkham Knight, or you play Mass Effect 1 and it's just not nearly on the level of Mass Effect 3. This is how it felt playing Guardians the entire time. It was great, it felt fluid, and there's certain moments where you're shooting and your teammates are doing combos, and I appreciate and I applaud their attempt, the developer's attempt to do something different, something I personally haven't seen before, and I think it was done well. But I see where it can go, and I think the developers probably do as well. It's just not there yet. Combat also got really, really repetitive. You'd go from one hallway, combat, another hallway, combat, a third hallway, combat. Sometimes you'd walk into hallways where they looked exactly the same. Peter's equipped with elemental guns, and he can shoot them with 4 different element types by the end of the game, but unfortunately the enemy types didn't really do anything exciting. They didn't play out in different ways. Ultimately, most of the time it amounted to, okay, this time I use blue gun, and this time I use red gun. While you are fighting, you do get to take advantage of a huddle feature. Basically, this power bar kind of fills up as you fight and do damage to enemies, and then ultimately, if you find yourself in a tough spot, it takes you out of the experience as you try to rally your troops by picking the right dialogue option. Thankfully, this can be turned off. You can just have auto successes in the options if you wish. And then if you pick the right choice, it'll send them back out. Their abilities will be invigorated where they have much faster cooldowns. All of your health will be restored. And you can get back in the action and show them who's boss. All the while that badass rock and roll is playing in the background, making you feel great about it. For some people, I could understand how this might really take you out of the experience. I thought I wouldn't like it, but it didn't disrupt me nearly as I thought it would. So all in all, I hope it comes back in the future. What else is there? Well, difficulty options are plentiful. Actually, the difficulty options is something I don't want to miss out on. You can customize everything. They have difficulties. You can pick a preset, but then you could also customize all of these elements about it. What is the cooldown time? How much damage do you deal? How much damage do you receive? How much does elemental shots cost? Why don't more games offer this level of customization? I myself played on the hardest difficulty, but I tweaked my damage amount from low to medium in order to make it more fun and to take away some of the bullet sponginess.
Thank you, Peter Quill.
For hours.
Barely a flesh wound.
We need to really pile it on.
And then finally, your AI teammates, they were competent, but we have to end off with the bugs. My God, the bugs!
Basically, my dad loves bureaucratic bullcrap. I thought being his only son.
stuck! Are you serious? My shoes have a problem. They won't turn off. I don't think I'm supposed to do that. And then one of the worst culprits was the lip syncing. On so many occasions, the lip syncing would be so far off. And I wouldn't have made it as big of a problem as I am now. But for me, it happened at one of the most emotional parts of the game and completely, well, not completely, but drastically ruined the experience, as they'd say one thing and the lips would move literal seconds behind. I don't want to feature it here because it was spoiler territory. With any game, there's going to be bugs. The idea is to get them as minimal and happen as infrequently as possible, but here, it was just consistent enough where I was able to notice it, and it really did affect part of the experience for me. It might not happen to everybody, and some people might have none of these problems that I've disclosed here, but for me, it definitely played a part. So, Guardians. There's a lot here. I do have to say, out of all of the complaints I've listed, it pales in comparison to the simple amount of fun that I had with this title. By the end of the story, I promise you, you will feel like a true guardian of the galaxy. So, that brings us to our final score. And that, for Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy, is going to be an 8 out of 10. This is a must-buy at full price. If you're a fan of the Guardians, or are a fan of great stories in games, this one is a must-pick-up for you. Or you're just looking for a brand new experience, to something new to dip your toes into. I can't recommend it enough. Of course, there's elements that I want to see improved. The gameplay and combat could be a little bit better. The improvements and the skill upgrades could be more than just one and done upgrades for your characters. The dialogue elements can be leaned into a bit more, and the enemy variety isn't all there on top of a level of polish that is needed from the game. But I can't help but feel this could be exactly like the Arkham series, where it gradually improves with each entry, with some drawbacks if you want to include Arkham Knight, but it improves for the most part. Each entry getting better and building on a formula that's already great. The framework is here, it's just waiting to unlock its full potential, and I desperately am crossing my fingers we get to see that happen. Is this one of the top games of 2021? Well, we still got a while to go, so we'll find out. But for now, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, please do leave your thoughts down in the comments section below, and as always, I hope to see you all next time. So long, everybody.